Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. So guys, today I'm going to be talking about Natalie and Mike. So guys, hear me out on this, just bear with me. Natalie's a biatch. Yep, that's it, end of statement. And we've seen Natalie's true colours previously, but I kind of feel like what we saw last season was just a trailer. And this week we get the full feature film. Natalie is straight up mean. So if you're new here, welcome and consider subscribing to my channel. I do regular reviews on 90 Day Fiancé. So if you don't want to miss anything, please subscribe and don't forget to press the notification bell. So each time I do a video, you guys find out straight away. And also guys, please don't forget to like my video as well. Right, so without further ado, I give you Mike and Natalie. So Natalie is making breakfast in the kitchen. And when Mike walks in, she said, "You've had a long week, relax my love." And it's true, Mike has had a long week. Apparently he works in Detroit, Michigan, and it takes him rather a long time to get home. I personally think he works just down the road and he has about 15 beers with Uncle Bo to fortify himself for getting ready to go back to that battle act. But I digress. Natalie's in nice mood at the moment, so let's enjoy it while we can. It could very well literally last just seconds. She tells producers she really enjoyed Mike taking her to the waterfall and she felt so lucky, but she's still upset because she still doesn't feel at home in this house. And she further tells them that she hasn't unpacked as yet, and that's so she can make a quick getaway if need be. But yet she says, "I feel in this relationship we have hope." Do they? It seems doubtful. It will be only but another moment before her permanent PMT comes rolling back and Natalie resumes Veruca salting and Catherine the grating. Kids, look her up. And Natalie narrows her eyes and we know she's about to dish it. So as they finish eating breakfast, Mike declines another croissant and Natalie went on full Weight Watchers mode with him. She went, "Yeah, that's it, you don't need to eat so much. If you lose 10 pounds, your weight will be perfect." And she said, "I need to put on weight and you, well, you need to lose it." And as we all know, being called a fat fuck is never amusing. Mike looked quite unhappy, but Natalie continues, "I need some closet space." And he said, "I've shown you the closet and where you can put your clothes." And I very clearly remember this from the first day she walked into the house. She said, "I don't want hang. I put clothes in my drawers. I want shelves." And he said, "Well, why don't you just hang your stuff up?" And she said, "No, only drawers, drawers, drawers." So Mike emptied 3 of his drawers and told Natalie she could put her clothes in there. And she went straight from little brat to happy as Larry, and she tried to give him a high five and she went, "Thank you, Mike, you are a genius." Genius? Genius, because he cleared out a drawer. And I want us to put a pin in this because it's going to become very relevant in just but a moment. And then as they were both standing in the closet, Mike said, "Well, you can hang anything that you want to hang in here." And she said, "No, I don't want. And Mike said, "But why not?" And then she said, "Well, because it smells." And Mike said, "Smells? Smells like what?" The Ebird knows. "It smells of Uncle Bo, Mike, it smells of Uncle Bo. It's 1 part Woodbines and 2 parts Carlsberg Special Brew. And there's a little sprinkling of thrift store special. That's what it smells like." So Mike tells producers sometimes Natalie's really hurtful. And Natalie's there all smug. She's thinking, "Ha, I've hit a nerve. Natalie, you've got a bloody nerve. Don't get me wrong, I fully believe that it smells. But when you move in with a boy, here's what you do. Whilst he's at work, everything that you don't like, you put out in the trash. Don't do it all at once, do it daily. I guarantee you he won't even notice. Photograph his credit card back and front. And make multiple and repeated purchases online for anything that you feel you may need. If his closet smells, you take out all of the clothes that you don't like and you take them to the thrift store, or the ones that you would like him to keep. You launder them day by day, and then you spray out and clean out the whole of his wardrobe with industrial grade Febreze. Problem solved. And it's not as if you haven't got the time on your hands now, is it?" And next time we see Natalie, she's wandering around the house doing housework, and she tells us she's extremely bored. Oh Natalie, only boring people are bored. And she also tells us that in America, housework's much harder than when she was in the Ukraine. Natalie, that's more than likely because your mum did it all. And then she says the work never ends. Natalie, there's only 2 people in the house. How much could there possibly be to do? And then she laments, "I had to remove my nails. I loved having my long nails." But according to her, it wasn't possible with the high level of housework she has to do. I accept the house is bigger than her apartment in Ukraine. I just don't see how it's going to be so much more to clean. Mike's in Detroit all day, so you're only really cleaning up after yourself. How much can there be to do? And then Natalie tells us that she's depressed and isolated. And she says she has no friends whatsoever. And I was slightly inclined to feel sorry for Natalie, but I'm afraid her characteristically arrogant, supercilious and graceless attitude smother any sympathy I have. But Mike has lived in this small town all his life and he does know people in the town. He should have definitely either spoken to some of his friends and asked them if their wives or girlfriends or partners would be friends with her. And he should have introduced her to anybody that he knows. Even a coffee date once a week would be something. So I do find that Mike has been lacking in this aspect. Even stripper shagger extraordinaire Jovi managed to introduce Yara to a couple of people. Mike, do better. And then Natalie's mum calls. How are things? And she says fine, and her mum says, how are you? Oh mum, she's okay. As far as omni-premenstrual autocrats go. Mum, everything is fine. And she went, is it? And she went, da. No, Natalie, not da. Niet. Mum, it's all gone dirty-mo. And then Natalie carefully explains to us all that she protects her mum at all costs. For she doesn't want her to worry. And her mum nosily asks, have you got your ring back yet? And then Natalie dabs at her eye. She's on Facetime, by the way, guys. So her mum said, what's the matter? Are you okay? Is this how you protect your mum, Natalie? Worrying the bejesus out of her? Great. And then she said, are you still getting married? Am I going to get an invite to the wedding? And Natalie said, well, we're not going to have a big wedding, but I'm just waiting to get my ring back. Mike's so romantic. He'll have a big surprise for me. I've got a feeling it's going to be a big surprise for both of you. I reckon Uncle Bo nicked that ring on his way out. And then her mum said, weddings don't come round very often. And then Natalie scoffed and said, my mum thinks weddings are for life. Natalie, they're supposed to be. If you don't think it's going to be for life, you probably should not be getting married. And guys, I've got every reason to believe Natalie literally just wants that green card. She has no respect whatsoever for Mike. She barely tolerates him. And to be quite honest, watching them together, and in fact watching them together, I don't even think that that's what tolerating looks like. And with all this talk of a wedding, you can see Natalie's eyes eviling. And she tells production the wedding is all Mike's choice. And next up we see Natalie lighting a fire and trying to get herself warm in Mike's cold house. And by the way guys, I do believe it's really cold. Somebody was saying to me that they thought the heating was some kind of air vents or something. But I honestly believe that that wood burner is their main source of heat. I genuinely believe that house is very cold. Loads of people in comments kept saying it's going to be just as cold in Ukraine as it is in America. Not so, because it depends what your house is made of. I guarantee a house in Ukraine was made of brick, and I think everything depends on insulation. Looking at the way that that house is put together, I don't think it's been insulated properly. I really don't. And Natalie has a little search around for her engagement ring. Natalie checked down at the pawnbrokers. So next up, Mike gets in from Detroit, and he seems quite jolly. Don't worry, Mike, she'll beat that smile off your face in seconds. Hi. And Natalie said, I had a really bad day. And Mike tells production that his job is really wearing him down. Well, Mike, I think you'll find Michigan is a bit of a trek. And poor Mike's starving. He said, can we have pasta? And Natalie said, no, I want to make rice with shrimp. And Mike said, oh, okay, do you know what? I'll make a stir fry to go with it. And she went, no frying. Mike looked dumbfounded for a moment. And he explained, no, stir fry's not frying. Mike! It actually even says the word fry in the name. I'm not saying it's unhealthy, but it is frying. And Mike cracks me up. Mike thinks it's only fried if it's deep fried. And then he finally says, okay, I'll cook it with water. And I feel sorry for poor Mike. The most thing that guys want when they get in after a really hard day is to have a really hearty meal. And although Mike looks like the kind of chap with quite a fart-heavy diet, I think that whilst he's working so far away, Natalie should be just more flexible about this diet. And when he said I'll cook it with water, Natalie went, yeah! And she went to go over to him and high five. Good Lord, Natalie. Back on your meds, Natalie. Back on your meds. But Mike refused to high five her. And Natalie said, come on, Mike, I want you to be in shape. And then Mike said, oh God, I need a beer. And Natalie said, please don't drink any more beer. I wish you would drink water. Don't worry, Natalie, there's water in beer. The Ebird's pretty sure of it. Mike said no, and he got a beer from the fridge. And then Natalie says to production, I hate the way Mike behaves. I think when somebody's in love with you, they should listen to you and do what you say. But Mike just won't, he's so stubborn. And Mike said, I'm not giving up alcohol. And she looked at him and said, when you lose 10 kilos, then we'll talk. You're talking now, Natalie. You won't shut the F up. And again, Mike's very hurt by this. And he tells production it's always a battle with Natalie. She says some really hurtful things. I can't believe she talked about my weight. And then Natalie told Mike she'd been looking for the ring and that she didn't know where it was, but she thought it was in the safe. And Mike said, why are you so nasty to me? And then Natalie said, are you trying to pay me back because of what happened with the ring in Ukraine? And she tells producers again, I'll be punished for that mistake. But Mike tells her, I don't play silly games like that. I'm not punishing you at all. I just want to see where we're at before I give you the ring. But Natalie's not listening. She's got other things on her mind. And she said, Mike, what's your IQ? And Mike said, my IQ? What's an IQ? No, he knew what one was, but he had no idea what his IQ was. And then Natalie bragged, my IQ's really high. It's 110. Natalie, I don't think 110 is particularly high. It's not braggable. But she continues, Mike, have you ever been to a museum, even one? And he said, yes, I went to the Louvre in Paris with you. And she said, well, I took you there. And I don't know why she said, I took you there. Is it your museum, Natalie? Is it in your hometown? Is it something that Mike didn't know anything about? And you suggested it, and he didn't really want to go and you forced him there. No, it's not. It's one of the biggest tourist attractions in Paris. How did you take Mike? And then she said, in Paris you were fine, but you act differently now. You're low class. And I guess by low class she means working class, which I guess he is. But Natalie, you can't pretend you didn't know that. He lived with his uncle with no teeth, in a wooden house in the middle of the woods. And when he was in Ukraine, when you argued, he walked out and went for a drink for 6 hours in his pyjamas. Was that no sort of clue? But then Mike said, what do you know about low class? And Natalie said, I'm living it now. And Mike went over and put his hand around her waist and she pushed him off and she said, you're drunk. Oh my God, I'm scared of you. Natalie, you're not scared one little bit because you're talking out the side of your mouth at the man. You're extremely lucky he hasn't clipped you round the ear. And then she went one step further. She went, who was your ex-wife? I bet she was low class too. And at the end of the segment, Natalie said to production she doesn't like how Mike treats her at all. And she knows she pushes his buttons and she can be out of order sometimes. Sometimes? Oh, they must not have televised the times when you're nice then, Natalie. And poor old Mike, he says, I just don't understand. Where has all this come from? What's Natalie talking about low class? And he said, I'm not going to give her the ring yet because I really don't know where we stand. And that's where we end things for this week. And so what does the Ebird make from all of this? Well, it's just as I've said so many times before, so I'm not going to labour the point too much, but they are chalk and cheese. Opposites do not attract. But I really don't know what it is that makes Natalie think she's so intelligent. I've yet to see it. And a couple of weeks ago we saw them arguing in a restaurant about Mike eating meat and Natalie saying it's awful and that an animal had to die because of this. And this little interlude goes to show me, Natalie, you do not have an IQ of 110. I think it's probably about 90, if that. You're sitting there eating fish and calling yourself a vegetarian. You're not a vegetarian, you're a pescatarian. If you eat fish, which you do. And you had the gall to say, because you're eating beef, an animal had to die. Is your fish still swimming around alive in your stomach then, Natalie? Is your fish still alive? No, it's not. It's dead, and it's only dead because you wanted to eat it. It doesn't take an intelligent being to work that out. And ditto, talking about somebody's ex-wife. Anybody with any intelligence would leave that topic well alone. And then she keeps going on and on about how badly Mike treats her and how she's living in hell and how she hates this life in this house. And then in the very next breath, she's saying, when are we getting married? And can we set a date? And where's my ring? Natalie, what is it you want? And guys, this is the clearest evidence to me. She doesn't like Mike. She thinks he's thick. She doesn't like Uncle Bo. She doesn't like the house. She doesn't like what he eats or drinks. And she thinks he's low class. And to some extent uncultured and uneducated. So he's everything she doesn't like, yet she still wants to get married to him, and she still wants to have a kid. The only reason she's doing this is so she can skip back off to Ukraine with the kid and have American money coming in, or she can stay in the US and try and get a better husband when the fancy takes her. And also remember when Natalie's mum said a wedding's for life, Natalie scoffed at that and said she doesn't think so. Why is that, Natalie? Pray tell. But I have to say, as the weeks go by, I have less and less respect for Mike. Quite frankly, I don't know how you let somebody speak to you in that way in your own home. And as good looking as you may think Natalie is, And you may think you're punching and you'll never get someone as good looking as Natalie again. Mike, you probably won't, but you'll never feel as much like dog shit as Natalie will always make you feel. Are you so superficial that that is worth it? So guys, let me know what you think. Do you think it's worth it for Mike to stay in this relationship? And I especially want to hear from guys. I know loads of you think Natalie's beautiful looking, but is that treatment worth her looks? She knew what Mike was, she's met him many times before. So don't suddenly say now, Mike, you're so uncultured. You knew that. Oh Mike, it's better to have loved and lost than to spend your whole life with somebody like Natalie. So guys, let me know what you think. Do you think that Natalie and Mike can ever have a proper relationship? Now I'm not talking about if they get married or what they do after 90 days. But what do you think long term? Any old body can get married, that's easy. Will they be able to make it work? And is Natalie just lashing out at him, or does she really have a really low opinion of him? And I'm not blaming Mike at all, Natalie has got a filthy, vile mouth. But Mike, assert yourself. If you don't tell her what's what when she's saying these things, she's going to continue. And in fact, she's getting worse. But as usual, Mike's just so happy to be in the presence of somebody good looking that he allows her to do whatever she wants to him. He's truly pathetic. And as for Natalie, well, she's very talented. She's able to treat people like crap and worship God all at the same time. And it has to be said, in a sense, Mike's life is a metaphor for the millennial existence. School, hard lives, hard work. 90 seconds on international Tinder, meddling family, marriage, misery, babies and death. Unfortunately for him, it seems Natalie wants more out of life. And I know I said previously that maybe Mike was using Natalie so he could get paid from TLC, but there's no way he'd put up with this amount of crap unless he really had feelings for her. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for listening, and if you've yet to do so, please make Ebird a very happy Ebird and press that subscribe button. Only 40% of you are subscribed, so press that button. And thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Ciao for now.